Hey everyone. So today, as you can probably tell from the title, I'm kind of bringing in a very kind of a different type of topic. Usually I talk about gaming, food, and other random stuff, but today it's something that hits home for me because being an Asian American and having my family in the local San Francisco Bay Area, it really scares me because right now, there's a lot of increased attacks on a lot of Asian Americans. And for myself, I'm not worried about myself. I'm more worried about my parents and my grandparents who live in the area. My parents, they're younger, but my grandparents aren't getting any younger, and they live in some of the hot areas of where this stuff can happen. So for me, I'm definitely afraid for them, and I'm definitely, I don't want them to get hurt. And the part that pisses me off the most about this bullshit is just like, I'm sorry for my cursing, but it's the stupidity behind this. A lot of people are blaming, are associating this with like COVID. I mean, seems kind of weird. I mean, there was that already begin with in the beginning of COVID, but it seems kind of odd that 5 to 6 months later, or like 8 to 9 months later, now it's like surging, right? It's like, what the hell? It's like, what the hell is going on here? And but regardless of like, what the real reason is, like these racist attacks are like extremely messed up. Like, how can you go, like, how is you as a human person gonna go attack elderly? Like, really? Like, you think you're a really big badass person because you attack someone who can't defend themselves? Who, like, I mean, if you watch any of these videos that have been recorded from security cameras, these are people who are barely walking. Like the stride is maybe 6 inches per step, and you're going to go up to them and then push them as hard as you can and think like you're going to walk away thinking you're some kind of like extra macho person or something. Like, what kind of asshole are you? Like, can you possibly be? Like, I mean, if the people, if anyone of like that actually agrees with people and are watching this, like, and actually like thinks like, you'll walk away thinking better yourself, it's like, really evaluate your life values and evaluate who you think that you're actually trying to influence here, because it's absolutely ridiculous. And what the hell has like, and arguably, like, it's the most like idiotic and most illogical thing to blame Asian Americans for a disease that came from another freaking country. Like, that makes no sense. Yeah, sure, our ancestry is go back that way, but if I go start blaming Ebola on African Americans, like, is that somehow okay then? If I start blaming West Nile virus on Egyptians or something, on Egyptian Americans, that's somehow okay? Like, there's obviously the logic there makes no sense, but somehow to these people, it somehow makes sense out of nowhere. Whereas like when you give them like normal other situations that make absolutely no sense, they're like, oh, well, that's not the same, or they start making stupid excuses. And it's absolutely insane in how this world kind of works sometimes. And I've been, just kind of surfing the net looking for how many more instances there is. And right now there's an increase in robberies because of, Lunar New Year that a lot of Asian ethnicities and cultures, celebrate. And what involves in that is usually a lot of money. So people are, withdrawing cash to put in red envelopes, and they're getting targeted by a lot of other people to rob. Now, robbing is, I mean, I guess is one thing. Is, I wouldn't necessarily call that a racial attack, but the attacks in terms of where it's hurting people. I mean, this other guy, I read a story about this other dude who beat an 80-year-old couple, and the woman, the spouse of the victim, passed away because she hit her head on the ground. And it's like, what the heck? And guess what? This person has a history of arrests and violent behavior, including molesting a child. And yet somehow the California government thinks this person should be walking around on the streets. Like, are you insane? This person should be locked up in an insane asylum or something, But of course, that's a whole nother political issue with crime and incarceration that I don't want to get into. But it's absolutely insane. And I read another article about how racists basically attacked Japantown in San Jose, California, and defaced a monument for the first generation Japanese people. And it's completely stupid. Like, this is like by far the dumbest racist thing, is because one, it's like, if you're gonna blame, if it's COVID related, then you're a moron because one, you went to Japantown because you're pissed about something that came from China. That's like me going to Little Italy and ransacking the place because I hate Nazis. It's like it makes completely no sense. Like these by far the dumbest people. Like if on the planet, if they're like, I hate Chinese people, let's go to Japantown. It's like, yeah, you're an idiot. Like, if the only thing these people need is not being arrested, is to go back to school or look on a map, of like, and just take it like 5 seconds to maybe even Google the difference between Asian ethnicities. And you know what? These are the same people who will play a race card like the second they can. It's like, oh, like you're gonna arrest me because it's because I'm this or because I'm that, and they're the most likely people to cry shame at the same time, but they have no problems attacking other ethnicities who have nothing to do with this current problem of anything. And on top of that, they attack the wrong community. Japan is not China. Those are two completely separate nations. Like, I don't know. Like sometimes I take advantage. Like I realize that I feel like how blessed I am in my education, because you'd be surprised at how many people don't know like little small details. Just like, for example, Japan attacked China during World War II. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about that stuff, or like little things, it just happens around the globe, regardless of what country it is. And these are big events. Like they just don't know about this stuff because one, they probably never paid attention in school. They're the type of people who's like, I'm never going to use this again, so what's the point of learning it? And yeah, maybe I'll never use history again in my life, but at least I know it, and I'm not ignorant. I'm not a moron to this type of stuff. And it's like, I'm sorry, but like, this reading all these stuff, it just angers me so much because, like, one, I mean, parts of me wants to like retaliate, which is obviously the wrong thing to do, and us as an Asian community, it's so easy for us to, put the hate back onto whoever's attacking our people. And that's like also the wrong thing to do. It's like, yes, like yeah, you should be mad at the person, but not of the people they belong to. Right. And these are times like where, right now in America, there's a lot of diversity and in terms of, and division, or I should say, there's a lot of division between the American people. And we need less of that. We need to be less divided. We need to be more connected and united than ever. And a lot of these racial tensions need to go away, and there's a lot of community, and thankfully a lot of Asian celebrities and influencers are coming out and talking about it. Even the White House has kind of addressed it, which is nice. But I'm kind of shocked that, if tomorrow, some other incidents happens, like depending on which community it goes on, it'll be broadcasted across the news. It's everywhere. But most of these Asian attacks so far have not been on CNN. They're not being broadcasted across like multiple media networks, like at least not the big ones, and being seen as like, kind of like a national crisis. And it feels so belittling from our entire country that, yeah, sure, Asian people are only 5.6% of probably the United States right now, but hell, like but like our culture in terms of Asian culture has spread throughout this country like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you can go anywhere in this country and no one will not know who Bruce Lee is. How many people know what Panda Express is? How many people? I mean, there's more Chinese restaurants in this country than there are every single fast food joint combined. Okay. So, I mean, obviously our influence in terms of Asian community is huge. Japanese restaurants, Korean restaurants, Vietnamese restaurants, it's getting bigger. I mean, all these things, like, people will eat our food, but they'll hate the people. So it's like, it's crazy to me that there's just so much of this craziness going around. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But I feel like us as a people, it's so easy for us to just get angry, and it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to turn it around and try to attack someone. Like it'll be bad if like the Asian gangs or you know other organized crime units or whatever groups start retaliating against these random people um, for their mistakes. That would be wrong thing to do. If anything, we need to unite. Like we need to have a conversation. We need to have dialogue. We need to open up a place where people can feel safe and come together and talk about stuff. And yeah, some of these people are maybe not right in the head, some. But I also don't want to say like, like the one thing I also hate is when people's like, oh, these people are mentally ill. It's like, are you really going to equate mental illness to racism? Yes, like, on some level, like racism is not normal and it's all about hate. But to me, mental illness is like something that's biologically wrong with you. Like if a person is autistic, if a person has ADHD or ADD, or something where like they have a chemical imbalance or a defect in their actual biology, like that's mental illness to me. Not just because if someone thinks differently, that's not mental illness. That's just poor education. you know and I'm not saying like things like PTSD can't be considered mental illness, because PTSD is a completely different thing. PTSD is like an external source that completely has so much damage to your brain that it has altered the way of your thinking to the point that it's like abnormal. That's a different type of, like, I feel like brain damage, or like mental illness that's not necessarily biological, but it can have a lot of harsh, harmful effects, obviously. But like, I believe racism is not part of that. To say that like, oh, these people are like mentally ill, it's like, so that just kind of excuses a lot of things. People who have PTSD, people who have actual brain, and mental illness, like they can't control a lot of it. They need help, and sure, racists needs help too, but they choose to hate. They choose to learn the rhetoric. They choose on a daily basis to wake up thinking the way they do. They sure, like you can say some have been brainwashed since they were kids. Yeah, that's true. But like, they still have a choice on the everyday life to be like, maybe there's something more to this whole, color versus color thing. And they can go online and, research it a little bit more. But some people don't. People who have autism and things like that, they can't just choose not to have it the next day and whatnot. So I really hope that, in just saying this, I hope that, us as the Asian community, we can come together, because there's a lot of even rifts between different Asian ethnicities, and I hope that we can all come together, hopefully unite as one, and also unite with the other people that that are causing this too, or at least, all right, let me rephrase that: unite with all the other ethnicities, so that all this hate just goes away, because or so that it would just be mitigated. I love the fact that Mr. Fab, a Bay Area rapper, who's very prominent in this area, he's definitely out against, he has spoken against all this hate and all this ridiculousness, because some of the attackers are from the Black community, and I have no animosity towards the Black community at all for myself, but I'm glad that he spoke out about this, and I agree with him that he's like, what, like the majority of us are not celebrating this, and I hope to God that he's right. And then, like, I'm so glad that he spoke out about this, and he's partnering with multiple other Asian celebrities to kind of bring more awareness to this and to hopefully stop it. So hopefully more Bay Area, just celebrities, maybe E40, hey, Bay Area, can come out about this too, and like we start just seeing just a few more people to start denouncing this type of stuff, because right now it's about our elderly. So it's not even just normal people, it's the elderly. Like, come on, man, like the elderly, really? Like, if this was the other way around, if the Asian community started attacking elderly of other ethnicities, there'd be like insane amount of like protests and like shit, like things like just going off the chain in these communities and going crazy. But when it's the other way around, somehow like there isn't that. And like, yeah, there's a lot more to it than just what that meets the eye. But anyways, I don't know. This rant has gone on way too long. It's already been 15 minutes. So all I have at the end of the day, I just hope that all these attacks don't bring on more attacks, and that um, hopefully the country pays more attention to this so that we can bring it to light. Because the more attention we have to it, the less likely, hopefully, the less likely it'll happen, and that the more likely that law enforcement and also just even Asian people in general will get great, kind of gather together to get, to prevent this from happening. And some have already done that. Luckily, there's been like kind of more like private security, and people have set up patrols, volunteers, in the Asian communities to protect our elderly. If anyone feels like they feel vulnerable, they're like, hey, we'll walk you to your car, we'll walk with you around town when you do your grocery shopping or whatever, just so that you don't have to feel vulnerable, and I'm glad that the community is stepping up to do this. But we shouldn't have to. At the end of the day, people shouldn't need chauffeurs or like a armed security guard next to them just so that they can go buy some oranges. That shouldn't have to be a thing. So, but anyways, that's the end of my rant for now. Hopefully I don't have to come back and do another one, because I really hope that these events start going away, and I hope that our communities can heal and eventually band together to stop any types of racial attacks against one another. So anyways, thank you guys for participating in and watching this, whether it's live or later. Let me know what your thoughts on about all this stuff and how we can come together as a community and become a better citizens for one another in our nation. So thank you guys. Take it easy.